My name's Steve and I love people who make things. We're a nation of inventive, inspiring makers.
This room alone will produce 100,000 items a year. But yeah, it used to be full of cows.
And then I'd be, Afghanistan or Iraq, sat in my room just sketching out designs, waiting to come home to play around with them.
I'm on a mission to list the greatest products we make, because if we don't champion the skills on our doorstep, we risk losing them.
Running down to our left, we have hand cutting. The problem is getting labour now.
One of the biggest challenges we have here is our ageing workforce.
Join me as we hear stories from behind the factory doors.
I remember drawing my dad's house and he said, "Why don't you count the bricks?"
Oh, he wanted you to be quiet, didn't he? Do you ever have any sleepless nights, Alex?
I don't sleep.
Together, let's make more makers. Welcome to the factory next door and welcome to the market town of Macclesfield in Cheshire, northwest England. Strong weaving history in this area. I've just passed the Silk Museum, which gives an indication of the history I'm talking about here. And Wikipedia tells me at one point there were 71 silk mills in this relatively small town. Okay, we are here to celebrate a closely associated industry, that of making clothes, in particular the three-piece suit. Right now, you and I are striding down a cobbled street, heading for a former mill that is now home to the Tailoring Academy, which actually I've just spotted the sign on the wall there. And above the doorway, it says 1885 carved into the stone, which is lovely. Whilst I pop in and say hello, have a sneak peek at what's coming up in today's episode.
My parents thought I was mad. I had to use my hands. That was clear to me.
Is there something primeval that drives us to want to use our hands to create things?
I had to get there to do this. That was the best thing I ever did. It really was.
And one day, Luciano Pavarotti walked into the shop.
So I teach how to make classic suits. Quentin, are you from Macclesfield?
No. Hang on, you're telling me my legs are odd.
I didn't have a close look at them.
I'll show you later.
They are very likely not to be symmetrical.
Oh, door is unlocked. I'm guessing it's upstairs. Oh, it's lovely, Brita. So nice to meet you. How are you doing?
Into the warm.
Thank you. It is very nice and warm in here. Huge windows. Are we at the top of the mill then?
Yeah, top floor.
I'd expect nothing less from you, Brita.
Yes, no, we are really, really lucky. But if you look around you, you can probably spot around a dozen old mill buildings. Some of them being reused, converted to housing, workshops like ours, office space and so on. But there are a couple, you can see one over there.
It's quite a sight looking out this window actually. It's that very traditional kind of Milltown look. Red bricks, kind of slate roofs.
Yeah. The Peak District.
Looking out over the other side of the mill.
Yeah, so we're lucky in that we are right at the footstep to the Peak District.
We've got the hills of the Peak District in the distance, and in the foreground, some houses. A lady having a cheeky cigarette out the front door there.
Oh yeah. So this used to be a room full of weaving looms, actually, shop floor. Now we've got 16 workbenches here, all made, by the way, locally.
At first glance, I kind of roughly see three different kind of areas.
Uh-huh.
These areas here on the left, maybe kind of laying out the materials, cutting maybe. In the middle, that looks like huge irons.
Yeah.
And on the right, we've got a row of sewing machines.
That's broadly right. Bespoke tailoring is an occupation that is, in the British tailoring tradition anyway, understood as two different jobs, really. Cutting and tailoring
There goes the fire alarm.
There's a fire
Okay.
alarm. We teach our students here to do both of these things, to learn the entire skill set.
I love this because it looks so beautiful, but dotted around this huge floor here, you've got the mannequins with kind of half constructed, predominantly jackets
On them.
kind of laid out on them
Yeah.
or hung on them, and it all looks very, very pretty.
So it all starts with a set of measurements. So students first learn how to take these key measurements, and based on that, using a set of formulae, we are creating a technical drawing. Of course, the job of the bespoke tailor is to turn those flat panels into a three-dimensional, well-fitting garment.
2D into 3D, how hard
it.
can that be?
Precisely. Yeah, but it is a little bit of an art in itself to be able to create these patterns. So we often have fashion, costume design students joining us, but they don't learn it at university. They're working with what is known as pattern blocks, which are kind of pre-fabricated patterns that they will learn to manipulate, but they don't learn to create them from scratch.
Is there a sense of exasperation in your voice there, Brita?
Yes, you're probably right. I find it quite shocking, actually, that these young people, after spending 3 years and a whole lot of tuition fees, not learning those quintessential skills. I'm from Germany originally, where I was an apprentice, a tailoring apprentice, age 19. This was after a year of driving around in Rome as an au pair, because I had to wait for an apprenticeship even then. So it was difficult to become a bespoke tailor even in the 80s.
I thought the 1980s were all about power suits.
Well, they were. Making them by hand is maybe a different story. So my parents thought I was mad, but I was pretty clear that that's exactly what I wanted to do. But please do not ask me why, because I do not.
You just stole my next question.
I don't have the answer. I just knew I had to use my hands. That was clear to me. I wasn't able to explain that after A-levels, which were actually pretty good, and could have gone off to do law or medicine, but I needed to use my hands. And then my first proper job was to make costumes for the Phantom of the Opera, which was about to premiere in Germany. So I spent some time at theatre, opera and theatre, and then I also worked for a period of time for a bespoke tailoring house, Tom Reimer, the equivalent of the Savile Row tailors, really, in Hamburg, where I was fortunate to kind of refine my skills. And one day, Luciano Pavarotti walked into the shop looking for a tailcoat in white silk. No pressure. So I was tasked with making that tailcoat for him.
I mean, I bet that was lovely, but you've got to be very careful when you go out to eat or order a coffee in a silk white overcoat, don't you?
Exactly. Yeah, it was pretty nerve-wracking. But what I remember most vividly was this. So bespoke tailoring customers oftentimes don't make it to the workroom because they will be, front of house, they will be served champagne, they will be talking to the boss, they will be looking at fabrics, they will be looking at designs and so on. Pavarotti insisted on going to the workshop to see how his garment was made, and that was because he himself saw himself as a craftsman. He was the son of I believe a baker, and he saw his art as a craft. He was, he practiced his voice every day. He refined his skills every day. So he wanted to see what we were doing. And he didn't speak any English, My Italian, I didn't even try out. I was so daunted with him in the room. But it was clear, that he really appreciated what we were doing. So that was wonderful.
Shall we have a little wander and a look? And so over here, they're starting to cut out the panels, I see.
It looks a bit like that. In fact, this is a pair of trousers that has already gone through its fitting. So it was a pair of trousers, and it has been ripped down, as we call it.
Hang on, so you take it apart again?
Yes. Yes, it's being taken apart again into its 4 panels, and then adjustments are being made. And that also, by the way, means 2 legs are not the exact same shape. So those amendments are made in asymmetrical fashion.
Hang on, you're telling me my legs are odd. They're not symmetrical.
Your legs, I didn't have a close look at them. But
I'll show you later.
They are very likely not to be symmetrical, yes. So that's what bespoke tailoring can do. So here's Rupal.
Hello, Rupal.
Who is just in that process of adjusting her trousers after her fitting.
I feel like I shouldn't be disturbing you as you cut your cloth there.
So it's okay, I can carry on now.
What's the hardest part for you of making trousers?
I think I find the adjustments the tricky bit, just knowing where to blend the adjustments and the curves. The new lines.
The new cut lines and sew lines.
Okay.
Yeah. Because, as we just discussed, it's not symmetrical. You can't go by a certain rule.
I just imagine trousers kind of going up and down. I think Brita's about to throw me out.
It's always a nerves-inducing moment when you fit the garment to the customer, making those adjustments and so on. And then oftentimes it's a whole personal history written, right? These 2 people having worked together over 3 months on that special outfit often stay friends for life after that experience.
I imagine it's a bit like doing a portrait painting.
That's a lovely way of putting it, yeah. Also highly personal. Yes, absolutely. I'd always struggled with my back. Being quite tall, having a long back, we sat on tabletops as tailors do, crossed legs. It's not good for your back. So 7 years in, starting to plan, entering that phase where I would have done my master's exam, my GP declared me unfit for my job. Now, Germany being Germany, you're not just off on a sick note for a couple of weeks and then return maybe with a brace around your neck or something. No, you're just not. You can't work anymore. You lose your insurance cover if you do. So I had to think of an alternative pathway to my craft, and what I did was becoming an engineer, a textile engineer. And then we moved to this country, to the north of England, and I thought, okay, I don't even have to think about working here because, industry's moved on. Until I realized that I'm right in the middle of, if you will, the northern powerhouse of textile manufacturing with the former centre of the silk industry in Macclesfield, and then surrounded by Manchester, that was cotton, and West Yorkshire, that was wool production. And then it didn't take very long, and actually a chance encounter meant that I was just hired on the spot to become a development engineer in a local production company that makes airbags for the global market leader in that sector. Yeah, I had no idea, but it was 150 weaving looms, weaving away 24/7, just 12 miles down the road from where
Are they still operating?
Yes, they do.
Oh, I should go say hello to them.
Yes, it is fascinating because what they do is they weave airbags in one piece. So again, we're talking 2 dimensions to 3. They just work. They are able to weave 2 layers of material and the seam that holds these 2 layers together on one loom in one process. It's mind-blowing. Yeah, I did enjoy that job, actually, but something was missing. And increasingly, the longer I think about it and the older I get, I realize it literally is that therapeutic effect. And we all need it, whether it's gardening, whether it's making bread, whether it's brewing beer. We need to actually make things rather than just do things, think about things. Meet Quentin.
Quentin, very nice to meet you. How are you doing?
Great.
Quentin, tell me what you do here, without that sounding a rude question.
So I'm a tutor at the academy, and so I teach in various ways students how to make classic suits.
Quentin, are you from Macclesfield?
No. Well, I've been living in Macclesfield for a few years. I arrived in 2018. I'm French. I completed a mechanical engineering diploma. Took a few years, and then started working in that field. But I was always also interested in learning how garments are made, and it's like climbing up steps one after the other. You learn how to make like more simple garments, and then you get bored of that, so you try to learn some more stuff. And at some stage, you feel like, okay, what's the next challenge? And so that was like jackets, like traditionally constructed suit jackets. And it's really like this kind of passion for learning how things are made that kind of drove me to that. I've always been interested in not necessarily in style and fashion, but more into the techniques and how things are meant to be put together.
It's so interesting. The thread that keeps coming up is this engineering, this construction aspect, particularly to the jacket. I am going to see jackets in a whole new light after this chat.
Yeah.
Dear Factory Next Door community, my name's Lou and my dad is Steve, host of this podcast. When he's not telling me bad jokes, he's recording this show. He's got no team behind him, no agency funding it. He pays for everything. If you can afford to, would you please buy him a coffee so he can keep this show on the road? Go to www.buymeacoffee.com/The Factory Next Door. I'll also put the web address in the About section of the show and on his Instagram page. Thank you for helping to keep my dad busy and out of my hair when I'm trying to play Minecraft. I'll let you return to the show now.
So I started my first bespoke tailoring house. Of course, the question was, how is my back going to cope with that? And the answer to that was never sit on a tabletop again and do something about, posture and all that. So weights and all that helps with it. And then the other question is, how do you, where are the skills gone actually that you've not used for 2 decades almost? So I gave myself a couple of months to just make a couple of garments for friends and family to see whether muscle memory comes back. And then I just started drafting the patterns.
How did that feel?
Well, it was almost magical. I'm not a particularly spiritual person, but it was magic because it just came back. Hands were just doing it. And that was pretty special. And then I set out at the local treacle market, which you might not have heard of, but which is actually award-winning right here in town once a month.
Oh, and you just kind of set up a gazebo and offer your
didn't even
bespoke
have that.
tailors.
I had
You didn't even have the gazebo.
I had 2 dummies. And luck with good weather. Yeah, so that's how it started. And the first orders came in through that. My very first customer ever, it's a builder, local builder, who builds with his hands cottages from the local stone. And he said to me, I'll never forget that, He said to me, "I can sew, but I cannot tailor." And I thought, hang on a second, you burly guy, did you just tell me that you can sew? And he said, yeah, I'm making dresses for my nieces. So he literally sits and makes these garments for his, female side of his family. But he had that appreciation, and that was really important to me. That's not tailoring, it's a different story. So he got the first 3-piece suit I made in my new capacity as an independent bespoke tailor.
When we think of the 3-piece suit, what's the hardest part?
The hardest part is definitely the jacket. The jacket has a supportive understructure that we call the canvas. So whereas the trousers consist of the cloth, the wool cloth, and some lining, the jacket has this meticulously put together under structure that is creating shape. And there's a lot of different materials, some weird and wonderful stuff like horsehair canvas going into these structures, and they're put together by hand. And why is that important? It's because we're introducing shape with these hand stitches in a way that no machine would ever be able to.
Understanding and learning the skills around the canvas work, is that the part that students take most time on or struggle the most with?
Yes, and we introduce that most difficult part, the most complex of all the garments, first in the course.
Is that just because you're mean?
Yes, we are a bit mean like that. We're kind of shocking our students into a pretty intensive course of learning. The reason behind it is once they have those skills under their belt, so all of those different techniques that go into making a bespoke jacket, they have about 85% of the skill set they need for anything else already. And anyone who is interested in joining us here will always have to answer 2 questions from me. First one we've already discussed, it's about relationship to math. And the other is, do you enjoy this flow state of mind when you kind of quietly stitch away for hours? And most of the time the answer is yes, because that's kind of what brings them to the idea of learning how to tailor in the first place. But if you don't, you're not in the right place. We spend hours and hours and hours hand stitching, both, on these internal layers, but also eventually to finish a garment. So that would be visible hand stitches.
Have you got, if you think about a 3-piece suit, looking around at these ones which are still under construction, have you got a particular favourite part? A little thing...
When I tailor myself, you mean?
Yeah.
Yes, I do love collars.
You love a good collar.
I love a good collar. The collar is kind of the face of the suit. It's the first thing that anyone will notice. It's really funny, actually, if you go to, I don't know if you ever have the chance to go to a tailor's convention. People will, when they greet you, not look you in the eyes, but they will look onto, they check out your collar. And it's kind of holding the whole jacket together as well. It actually holds the fronts up, it keeps the jacket in balance. A lot of character you can introduce with a good collar.
The hands, it keeps coming back to the question of hands.
Yeah.
Actually, I just want to play you a clip because actually you very kindly put me in touch with one of your former students who I wanted to have a chat with before I came here, just to get a feel for this place and to find out what he's doing. It's a chap called Dwayne McLeod. And this is a first for the factory next door, actually, because usually everything is done on site. And this is a first because I caught up with him on Zoom. But the reason is because he's on the east coast of America.
My name is Dwayne McLeod, and I live in a very small island community off the coast of Maine. We're not way out in the ocean. It's connected by a bridge, so it's not like I'm that remote. But I live in a small town, and I retired from a career in nursing right after COVID. COVID kind of did me in.
Why did you want to go to the Tailoring Academy on the other side of the pond, as it were, in Britain?
Well, I tell people, I don't know how it showed up. It showed up on my Instagram feed. This was years and years ago. I just saw pictures of it and I thought, this is like a fantasy. This is like a dream world. And I just really wanted all of that, to be in that space, to be doing that kind of work. It was something that I just had to do. I had to get there to do this. That was the best thing I ever did. It really was. It turned my whole life upside down. It really did. I never dreamed I'd be doing what I'm doing now.
So hang on, you're on a small island off the coast of Maine, presumably quite a small town. And you're like
1,000 people here.
How many?
1,000.
1,000, and you're like, and
most of them are just here in the summer.
I want to go into a bespoke tailoring. I mean, are they the most well-dressed 1,000 people in the whole of America?
No, no, they're not. But what I have learned is that there are men that are very into their clothes. I am personally, I am not. I never was. Most of my career I wore like a uniform. But there's a whole segment of society where clothes are really important to men.
If it's not that the clothes mean so much to you, is it the craft then that means so much to you?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's like, I'm just like a maker person. This is what it all kind of boils down to. And I always have been. Both my parents were very DIY people. My mom, she was like our Cub Scout leader, and all the boys in our neighborhood would come over to my house once a week, and my mom would teach us how to make stuff. And we would make a birdhouse or a little wooden car or some, stuff like that. So, I've always been a maker person. In tailoring and the things that are taught at the Tailoring Academy, it's like 90% hand sewing. I mean, we use the sewing machines actually very little. There's an enormous amount of hand sewing in a real tailored garment. And even though my hands are all kind of arthritic and stiff, I love all the handwork. I just love it.
Dwayne McLeod.
He was unbelievable. He actually turned 70 when he was here. He left the US for the first time in his life to be here.
Is there something primeval that drives us to want to use our hands to create things?
I think it must be, absolutely. I mean, that's what we've done for most of our history, right? We've not sat in front of a screen for the entirety of mankind. So we've always had to provide for ourselves. We always had to be good with our hands in all sorts of ways. And I think the best way of putting that is it keeps us grounded.
Sat talking to you now about your career, the kind of the insistence on becoming a tailor's apprentice, going off, kind of to Rome for a year whilst you waited, the struggle with your back, discovering you have to find a different career, doing the market stall and then setting up this place. What has been the scariest moment in your career?
Well, the scariest moment was probably to be told you can't do this anymore. Because, well, I was really young then, and my career was at an end point. That was really frustrating. So, yeah, that was the scariest moment.
And what's next?
What's next for you?
Well, we've just learned that 2 of our former students who have entered to the Golden Shears Awards, which is the big competition in our sector, it's also known as the Oscars of the tailoring world, have made it to the finals. So come March, I'll be all dressed up. I've got to make a suit for that.
When you go down to London to see your former students at that very, very big deal of an awards ceremony.
It's a big deal. Yeah.
Very big deal. I mean, you must be so proud.
I am. I'm so proud. Need to be careful not to well up now because I'm so proud of them.
Thank you so much for taking the time to chat to me. It is hugely appreciated, Brita, and very best of luck to your students at the awards ceremony.
Oh, thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
A German, a Frenchman and an American walk into a mill in Macclesfield. Not a joke, just another of the great stories you and I get to hear on the factory next door. Huge thanks to Brita and everyone at the Tailoring Academy in Macclesfield, number 29 on our list of the greatest products we make here. The 3-piece suit goes into our shed of greatness. And thanks to everyone who's been in touch the past week. Wave Guru, you are a legend and your calendar maths is super impressive. Amy Warman, did you get any of the pans in the end? London Co, I want you to know that I am reaching out to some of your suggestions. Many thanks again for all of your support. Janelle at White Weft, who's likely listening to this in her Brixton studio. Thanks again for repairing my beloved but old recording jacket. And Mikey Face 82, welcome to the show. That's a wrap for this episode. Please do star the show if you can. It does make a difference. If you're listening on Apple, consider giving it a short review. Right, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, I hope you're happy. Until next time.